Hello everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're doing a redux, and every once in a while I do that. I take an old video that I think could use a remake and I redo it and put it on YouTube. So these are the Tivoli Rivoli earrings, and I adore this earring. It's been around for a while, but I thought, okay, it's time to do a redo on it. So we're going to make these today, and what we're going to do is use this new dragon thread. So Potomac Bead sent me a few spools of this thread to try out, and we're going to do that today, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So as we create the earrings, I'm going to review the thread, how it works, how it feels, how it bezels, what is it, does it tangle, does it stretch, etc. So I'll be giving you a real review of the thread as we create a pair of earrings. So stay with me. We're going to come back, get a materials list going, and then we'll get started. Okay, before we get started making the earrings and reviewing the dragon thread, let's take a look at some of the threads that I use on a regular basis and the dragon thread. So here's the Beaded Wildfire, and this is thermally bonded bead weaving thread. This is in black. And this one is 0.006 inches in diameter, or 0.15 millimeter diameter, 50 yards. It's a little over $10 for this spool. This is Fireline, and it's by Berkeley, and you can find this at the sporting goods store. So this is originally, it is a fishing line, but Beadsmith now carries it as a beading thread. So it is micro-fused, braided bead thread, and if you notice, they spelled that wrong. There's a typo there. And this one is 0.007 inches in diameter, or 0.17 millimeters, 50 yards. It's about $12.99. And here's our dragon thread. So the dragon thread is ultra high molecular weight braided and bonded polyethylene fiber. Okay, so I really don't understand what any of this stuff is. I just know how it feels and how it works. So this is in black. We have 50 meters. It's about 55 yards. It is $7.99. So just to give you a little look, when I cut a piece of wildfire, and this is probably about 7 or 8 inches, it kind of stays straight, like it doesn't. It's more of a stiff thread. It's got a lot of body. It's great for larger beads, heavier projects. Love it, okay? And then when I take some Fireline, pretty much the same thing, only it's thinner. So it has a lot more drape, great for smaller beads. It's got a little stick to it. The original Fireline has a sort of black coating that comes off. It comes off on my hands. I use the black satin, so it doesn't come off on my hands, but it still has a little stick to it. It holds the beads really well. And this is the Fireline, and these are all pretty much the same, diameter and such. And here's the dragon thread. So when I pick up the dragon thread, do you see how it just flops right down? And that so it's a little thinner than Fireline, and it doesn't have as much structure as Fireline. So this is very drapey, very flexible, probably good for bezels, fine beading with smaller beads. It's a little more like a traditional beading thread, almost like a heavy upholstery thread. It's nice and smooth, so it claims to be very, very strong, and we'll see. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clear everything off. We're going to get a materials list going. I'm going to get started making these earrings and reviewing this dragon thread. Okay, let's get a materials list going. You'll need 2 14 millimeter Rivolis. I'm using a Swarovski and Olivine. Isn't that gorgeous? 2 Delicas, 2 different colors, 11-0, 15-0, 3 millimeter bicone, ear wires, stop bead. The dragon thread, of course, I'm using. You can use 8-pound Fireline for this as well. Size 10 beading needle. I was thinking as I'm looking at these that I'd like to do a bracelet. I'm really enjoying this pattern right now for the holidays. I think it's really pretty, and maybe even a necklace. Let me know what you think in the comments about that. All right, so don't forget to check the description box below the video for all color, shapes, sizes, amounts of beads, any coupon codes, because I don't always say the coupon codes, but there are coupon codes down there. Save a few bucks if you're doing some purchases. There are places to purchase, etc. down there. So don't forget to click that down arrow and check out the description box. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my channel, and ring the bell so you get notified every time I upload a video. All right, let's get started. Okay, let's bezel a Rivoli, make an earring. So here is the earring made with Fireline, and now we're going to make one with this new dragon thread. So here I want to start just right from the beginning as far as, okay, let's see how this thread cuts. So let's say I have to cut, I'll cut right here just to see. So cuts very nicely. I always use this pliers to cut my thread because everything else gets dull. That one always works. Then I'm going to just squish down the end, which I always do before I thread my needle. And then I'm going to thread my needle. That goes through very easily. Now sometimes when you're using Wildfire or Fireline, if you have a super thin needle, now this is a size 10 beading needle, so it's fine. But let's say you're doing a 12. Sometimes it's hard to get the thread through and you can feel it scrape a little bit. This is very thread-like, like I said, and goes through quite easily. So let me just pull off enough for a bezel. And here we'll clip it again. So here we'll cut that off. Here we go. I'm going to grab a stop bead. And let's see. There we go. So work along with me if you want to make the earrings, because they're really pretty. About stop bead about halfway through, so it's about 30 inches of thread. And then I'm just going to pick up and drop down to my stop bead 36 of my Delicas, and I'm going to alternate the colors. So just like that, until I have 36 on my needle, and then we'll come back and we'll start doing the bezel. Okay, so I have 36 beads on my needle. Now I'm going to sew those into a circle by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead, like that. Now I do feel a difference in the thread, just, that it's a little more supple than Fireline. Now you could always wax this thread. I don't see why not. I even wax Fireline, so that is not a big deal. Okay, so here I'm going to pick up a Delica, and I'm exiting the green one. I'm going to skip the gold one and sew through the next green one to put on my first bead. Give that a little pull so it pops into place. Picking up a gold Delica, skipping the gold, sewing through the green, and I'll do a few beads just to, to see how it works. Exiting the green, skipping the gold, sewing through the green. So just a standard peyote bezel, picking up a bead, skipping a bead, sewing through the next bead, or in this case, just sewing through every green bead, putting on a gold. So far holding, so far feels, pretty nice. I'm kind of putting my thumb in a little bit, to kind of make it curve a little. Now, I have to say, what I like about this is that when you're doing a small bezel like this, sometimes with Fireline, it gets stiff right away. This is very supple. It's soft. It's conforming really nicely. It's not stiff at all. And if it's got, if it has those qualities and it's super strong, I think it could be, a very nice thread to add to your thread repertoire. So there we go. So far so good. I'm just going to go around and then I'm going to come back and step up. Okay, I've come to the end, so now I'm going to put on my last bead. So here I'm exiting the green one, I'm picking up a gold one. I'm going to sew through the green one and then the gold one on the diagonal. It's going to step me up, giving a little pull. And I like that it doesn't get stiff. It's got a good body to it, but it's not super stiff. Nice. Okay, let's put on some 15-0s. So I'm going to pick up a 15-0. I'm going to sew through every sticking out Delica. So far I like it. There's no difficulty in the beading at all. It's not knotting. It's not tangling. It pulls together very nicely in the bezel. So it's not slippery. I like that. So you see how nice that's coming together? So I'm just going to go all the way around and I'll come back and step up. Okay, I'm going to step up now. So here's my last 15-0. So I'm going to sew through this Delica and then the 15-0 on the diagonal, like that. And then I'm going to add another round of 15-0s. Before I do, I just want to say that that's really nice. It's got structure, but yet it's soft enough that it makes the bezel curve really nicely. So here, let's add on some more 15-0s. So here, and see how nicely it's pulling in? Sometimes with a thicker thread, it gets so stiff when you're making a bezel that you have to kind of play with it a little bit to get it to stay round. And this one, it's just got enough structure and enough sort of suppleness that I can get around pretty nicely. All right, so I'm just going to add this last round of 15-0s on this side, and then I'm going to turn it over and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. So far, so good. So here's the first side of my bezel. It came out great. So now I've turned it over and I've taken the stop bead off, and I'm going to move this thread to the outside bead so I can add some more beads. So right now it's exiting this green one. I'm just going to sew through this one. Give that a little pull. Pop in my bezel. And now I'm going to do a little beading around the bezel. So picking up 15-0s. And I'm going to put a 15-0 between each sticking out Delica. And I have to say, so far, I like it. It's very easy to make a bezel with it. It holds the beads, and like I said, it's got enough give so that it's not stiff, but yet it's got enough structure that it's holding the bezel in. So I'm just going to go around. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this this round done, and then I'm going to step up and put another round on, and then we'll come back and we'll complete the earring, and that way we'll see how it works, not just with bezeling, but with stringing a little this way and adding beads, to stitch in the ditch and stuff. So kind of gives us an idea of how it's going to work with some other techniques as well. All right, so I'm going to finish this round, put on another round, and then come back and we'll continue. Okay, we're back. So let's continue. So I just sewed both of my front and back threads in, and the way you're going to do that is, you'll be exiting one of the 15-0s. You're just going to sew on the diagonal through another 15-0, and then through to the Delicas, and you want to just sew on the diagonal through the Delicas until you get to maybe where there are two together. You can reverse direction and just sew your threads in and clip them off. So I've threaded my needle with about 2 feet of thread, maybe a little more, put on a stop bead and left enough of a tail to sew in. I'm going to just take my needle and just sew right through the center Delica, which is my green one. And I'm going to do a little stitch in the ditch. So let's test it with a little stitch in the ditch. So here I'm just picking up a Delica, I'm sewing through the next green one, picking up a Delica, sewing through every green one, and this is what it looks like. So far, so good. I'm just going to do that all the way around. Then we'll come back and we'll add some bicones and 11-0s. Okay, coming down to the end, I'm going to put on my last stitch in the ditch, so sewing through the green one, and then I'm going to go sew right through this next gold one, and then I'm just going to sew through this gold one. Whoops. No, I'm not. I'm going to sew through, so I'm exiting this gold one. I'm going to sew through this green one right here, and then I want to sew through this gold one. So I'm just moving the thread away from where, you know, the ending there. Okay, so I'm just exiting this gold bead. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and I'm going to sew through the next Delica, and I'm going to pick up a bicone. I'm going to sew through the next stitch in the ditch Delica. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around, 11-0. Bicone through the stitch in the ditch, that Delica, and just do that all the way around, and then we'll continue. Okay, we're back, putting on the last bicone. So I'm sewing through this gold one, and then I'm going to sew through this 11-0. Just want to move my thread away from the end there a little. Through the 11-0 Delica, through the next bicone. So this is what I have. This is where I'm exiting, through bicone. All right. So then I'm going to pick up, to grab my 15-0s. Grab a few of those. Looks like a sunburst, doesn't it? I love this this little earring. 3 15-0s, a 3mm bicone, 3 15-0s, a 3mm bicone, 3 15-0s, a 3mm bicone. This is what I have on my needle. Pull a touch. Just going to drop those down. That's what it looks like. I'm going to pick up 5 15-0s. Like that. And I'm going to sew through my ear wire. Don't worry about if they all go through or they don't. We'll straighten out. You can put a wire guardian on here if you like. Oh, where'd they go? Oh, here they are. Okay, so there are my 5 15-0s right there. I'm going to sew back through that bicone under the ear wire and the 1 15-0 under the bicone. And then when I pull, see how it, hold on, pull that into place. It kind of pops like so. So I'm exiting that little 15-0 under the bicone. That's how my 5 beads have situated. You know, let me hold it up and give it a pull. So, and as we sew, it'll, let me see if I can straighten that out. Okay. That's what it looks like. I'm going to pick up 2 15-0s, a bicone, 3 15-0s, and then I have to grab a couple more bicones, which let me pop those out. Okay, so here we go. So I'm exiting the 15-0 under the bicone. I picked up 2 15-0s, a bicone, then 3 15-0s, a bicone, 3 15-0s. I'm going to drop those down. I need my last 15-0 there. Okay. Oops, it was just stuck on my needle. There we go. That's what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to skip this bicone and I'm going to sew through this one on my piece, and that's going to put my the hanging piece on right there. But you want to make sure this is secure, so exiting the bicone, sew through this Delica. So that's the gold Delica, and then I'm going to reverse direction and sew through this Delica like that. It's going to tighten that up. You want to make sure, okay, there, that your beads are tight up at the top. Like I said, you can use a wire guardian if you like. just going old school here. So here I'm exiting this Delica. I'm going to sew through this 15-0 right here. So I'm on the bezel now. I'm going back in this direction. I'm going to sew through this Delica. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew through all these beads till I get back to this gold Delica on this end here. So I'm gonna end up going through this, coming out of this one. I'm going to sew up through this gold one and through all the beads again. So I won't do it on camera, but you'll just sew through all your beads until you get to here. You're going to reverse direction, go up, go all the way around, come back down again, and then sew your threads in, and you'll be done with the earring. So get that done and then come on back, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this dragon thread. Okay, we're done, and here are our earrings. And aren't they cute? I absolutely adore them. I've forgotten how much I like these earrings. I hope you like them too. I hope you want a bracelet and necklace, because I think it's so cute for the holidays and great for little stocking stuffers or just any holiday gift. Make it in the birthstone of the recipient. Wouldn't that be cool? Really pretty. All right, so let's do a little recap on the dragon thread. Is it thin and strong? Yes, it's thin and it's got a lot of strength to it. Did it tangle? No, it didn't tangle. I have my list here. How does it bezel? I like the way it bezels. It really bezeled beautifully. I didn't have any trouble with it. It was nice and supple, but yet had enough structure. So that was really good. Does it not? I didn't have any knots. Does it fray or break? Not yet. So that's something down the line. You know, I think that all beading threads eventually will fray a little bit, depending on how much you go through the beads, how much you pull out, how much, you know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes in the future. Does it lose its coating? It doesn't really have a coating, so nothing comes off on your hands. Nice clean hands. Okay. As I said, it didn't break, didn't stretch. So I was really very impressed with it. It was great. Would it replace my Fireline or my Wildfire? No, it's not going to replace those threads because each thread has its purpose. Like Wildfire is not my favorite for bezels. Fireline has been my favorite for bezels, but this, this is my first bezel with it, so we'll see in the future. How's it going to work with a bigger bezel? Is it, who knows? But so far, I really like this for the small bezel because it's flexible enough that it doesn't make the beads kink up. So I will never get rid of my Fireline or my Wildfire, but I will add dragon thread to my thread repertoire because the way projects come out beautiful is by choosing, not only the beads, the design, how you bead, but the thread you use can make a huge difference. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you add it to your thread repertoire as well. And I want to thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.